Hey guys, today we're going to be assembling the new 30-inch flame from Neversink Tools. So yeah, here's all your parts. But we're going to start with just putting together the main frame and the handle. So I'm going to set a lot of this stuff aside. Now what we're left with is our main frame piece, our handlebars, which are going to go down here. We've got a long angled pipe. It's going to go through here. I've got a short straight pipe. Make sure you've got the 3 holes down. All right, let's open the hardware bag and see what we got. Small bag is for the tank holder, so we're going to set that over with the tank holder stuff and forget about it for now. This is the bushings, the springs, zip ties, and a couple of cotter pins. We're also going to set that aside. And we're going to get to the main bolt bag. So this has all the bolts. And what you're going to want to do is go ahead and pour them all out. And we're going to organize them a bit. So we're going to put our big nuts for the axles and our washers for the axles. We're going to set those aside. Right? And then we're going to organize these by length. So you're going to take your longest bolts and you're going to put them on one end. Right? And we're going to organize all the bolts by length. All the nuts are the same size. You can just divide those out. Right? The majority of the bolts are this middle size. Almost all of them are. That'll make it a little easier. Alright, so you have one long bolt, 3 bolts that are your next length. You have 13 of the normal bolts, 1 1-inch bolt, and 3 3/4-inch bolts on all your nuts. So make sure you get it organized by length because we're actually going to do it in order. Now we're going to lay out our brackets. Most of those are contained in this little wrapped section. So I'm going to cut that apart and we're going to lay them out where they go. These larger brackets, we're going to set those aside for now, and I'm just going to put them up here with the main frame. All right, so the longest bolt that we have, we need it for the thickest part of the bracket, so it's going to start right here. We're going to start by assembling the bottom of the straight handle. So you can go out to in, you can go in to out. I'm going to go out to in. Put that through. Go ahead and put a nut on. Now, we're not going to tighten anything up until the very end, okay? We want to make sure everything's attached and, in the right spot before we tighten anything. So the next longest bolts, we actually have 3 of them. One's going to go in the adjuster bracket, right? And then 2 of them are going to go down here, and they're going to go on the main frame and attach the tooth bracket on. And again, you can put these in either direction, back to front, front to back. Two there. Make sure when you're attaching this tooth bracket that you put on this little strengthener, right? So that gets 2 of the next size bolt and 2 nuts. So we got strengthener, frame, and then toothed bracket. All right, now we're on to our main bolt size. So we can kind of start going a little faster, but just try to stay with me. So I'm going to put a bolt on the top of the adjuster bracket. Now I'm going to take 2 bolts. I'm going to attach them onto the bottom of the, actually I'm going to do, now we're going to attach the, this is kind of the dummy side, the pivot side. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to try to stay consistent and go front to back on these bolts, but it doesn't really matter. You can put them in either direction. Notice I'm still working longest to shortest, so we're using these next longest bolts right now. Okay. ahead. Can you remember if this goes inside or outside? Inside. All right. You're going to want to attach the pivot bracket on the inside of the red bar. Same as the adjuster bracket. Take 4 of these. We're going to use them up here to attach the top of the handle. All right, so now we've got the main part of our handle together. We're actually going to stop on that for just a second, and we're going to put on our flame hood brackets. Right now, these go on the front of the main frame, but there are 3 settings. So at the start, I know I'm going to be using it on flatbeds, not raised beds, so I want my flame to be as low as possible. So I'm going to set it to the highest setting. If you did have raised beds and you're going to be using them all the time, then you can adjust that. There's actually one other adjustment that can be made to get your whole entire flame weeder higher. You can actually flip this entire bar, so you can actually put the axle on to the bottom. All the holes are the same, they all work out the same, and so that will give you a little more clearance if you're using a lot of raised beds. So I don't have raised beds though. So. Again, keep using your bolts in order, longest to shortest. So that was our last bolt of that size. So now we're ready to move on to our 1-inch bolt. This one, the reason it's longer is because it goes through 3 bracket pieces. So you're going to slide your handle down, right? And you're going to put your bolt in. Right? Then I've got 3 small ones. You're going to set 2 aside for the flame, and then you're going to put 1 here for the pivot side of the bracket. So that's the entire handle put together and loose. We're going to save these for the flame, and we're going to save these larger nuts for the carry wheels. But first, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. The only exception is these 2 pivot bolts, you don't want to tighten them all the way. So tighten them down and then loosen them half a turn. You can use different things to tighten these down. You can use a couple of 1/2-inch wrenches. This one actually ratchets, which is kind of nice, or you could use a 1/2-inch socket. Just start tightening. Remember, everything can be tight. All right, again, last one is this pivot bolt down here. And I want to tighten it up, and then I want to loosen it a bit. All right, notice I didn't tighten the flame hood bolts, and that's because we still have to put more stuff on down here, so I want to leave that loose. This just goes on the inside of this bracket. All right, if you need to, you can spread them a little bit. Should have left that hardware loose. So I like having the tube coming out of the bracket should really go to the right of the flame. Get it out of the way of the tank. Go ahead and tighten this up all the way, and then later we're gonna, it doesn't have to be crazy tight, but it needs to be pretty tight. If your model has pins, make sure you put that pin in the small hole first. So we're gonna put that pin in, and then we're gonna feed our bolt through. Right, and that's gonna locate that hood. So I'm gonna do it on this side first, pin in, bolt on. Now I'm gonna spread my bracket, put my pin in first, and I'm gonna feed my bolt through. This is a very secure connection. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that up while I've got access to it. So if you'll come around here on the outside, you can see there's a pin going through the small hole and the bolt going through the big hole. That sets the angle, holds it nice and tight. All right, next I'm gonna put on the wheel. So for that, we're actually gonna have to get another piece of hardware out. Set it in there for now. Go got a little bag with a spring, a couple of zip ties, and we have these bronze bushings. We need the bronze bushings out of there, and the pins also. So. The other thing we need is the axle. So these bronze bushings, they go in the end of the roller wheel. Okay, so put one at each end, and they're loose, so they're going to fall out if you're not careful. But as long as you get them in between those two brackets, it should be fine. Then you're going to take your stainless bar and you're going to lift the whole thing up, and you're going to feed it through. You know, want to be careful. Kind of hard. When you get to the other side, you want to make sure that you don't push that bushing out as you're pushing through. So take your pins. There's a couple of little cotter. Here, I'm going to do this one. I'll come around and show you the other one. There's 2 slots on this axle, and you just put the straight part in the slot, push it through, the lock on, and that's your roller. All right, so if you have the 40-inch blaze, then I want to show you how to put that wheel together. Just like with the others, you're going to put in bushings to the end of the wheel. These little bronze bushings go on each end, and then you're going to feed the axle through. You're just going to be careful when you push it out the other end that you don't knock the bushing out. If you do, that's fine. Just slide the bushing back in. All right, once you've got it in, you're going to slide on these spacers. Right? And I would do one at a time. So I would put your spacer in, and then I would push the axle flush with the spacer. And you'll see the reason for that. Because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the frame up, and I'm just from the other side, I'm feeding in the axle until I can get a cotter pin on. And then the other side, I'm going to put the other spacer on. See, I've got the axle sticking out, I've got the bronze bushing in. Slide on the spacer, and then you can push this back until you can get it right into your axle hole. All right, and then reach from the other side, give it a push until you have enough space to get your pin on. So if you got a 48-inch, your blaze is going to come with 3 wheels. First thing you're going to do is you actually get 6 of these bushings on the 48-inch model. You're going to put 1 in each end of each wheel. Slide in easy. They may try to fall out. That's okay. Just put them back in as you go. So then I'm gonna feed my axle through, and as I'm feeding it through, I'm holding the bushing on the other end. Okay. Okay. 1 wheel. Don't have to hold that bushing. 2 wheel. And final wheel. And I'm kind of, you notice I've got my wheels between my frame. I'm kind of using it to hold the wheels steady so that so they don't try to roll away. If you're finding it hard to aim, just twist the axle and it'll find the bushing. All right, so once I've got the axle through the wheels, I'm going to do one end at a time. I'm going to put on this spacer, and you'll see how the axle's not poking out of the spacer right now. Right? What I want to do is I want to lift this frame, and I want to poke that axle through like that. See how I did that? So I left the axle back a little bit, put the spacer on, and then I poked it through the axle hole on the frame. And then I'm just going to pin it. So now this one can't come out. So come around to the other side, and I'm going to show you how that one works. Same thing here. Make sure your bushing is in. Put your spacer on, right? Push your axle back flush with the spacer, okay? See how I've got it flush? That way it's not in our way. Hold your frame up, and once you get it in the right position, just push your axle through from the other side. Works perfectly. Your frame kind of holds everything together while you're working. Put your cotter pin through, and now you've got a wheel on. Next, we're going to put on our carry wheels. You have 4 of these spacers. You're going to put one on before you put the carry wheel on. So put the spacer on, put the carry wheel, and then put the other one on and finish with a nut. I'm going to come around and show you that in a second. Put a spacer on the axle. Put your wheel on. Another spacer. And your nut. For these nuts, you're going to need a large adjustable wrench. I'm going to grab that. You don't want them to be outrageously tight, so get them tight and then back them off a little bit, and that'll keep those bearings from getting crushed. That's pretty tight. I'm going to back it off and make sure your wheel spins freely but doesn't wobble. So the next step is to put together the tank holder. So for the tank holder, we have another bag of hardware. We have 2 brackets, and we have the front plate. For this, you need a 5/32 Allen wrench, and we need a 7/16 socket. In this goodie bag, we have our bungee stay, right? That's all this stuff. That's our bungee hardware. That's important. We're actually going to put that on first. You have 4 1.5-inch quarter-inch screws. You have 4 3/4-inch quarter-inch screws, and you have 8 nuts that are all the same. So the way this goes together is 2 brackets, right? One on each side. But before you put on the front plate, you need to go ahead and feed these guys on. And these are the bungee hooks. So you're going to put them through the little side holes. And they have a little spring to them. So you should be able to get them in there and then kind of pop them around the corner and they'll stay on, right? Same thing here. The one thing you're going to want to get is your bungee cord, because that's actually going to go on. So take one end of your bungee, put it through a hook, and then put that hook into the bracket. And again, same thing, go ahead and straighten it out so it stays on, right? That's how you need it. Take your other end of your bungee, put it through a hook, and put it through the hole. Straighten it out. So that's what you're left with. You have your stay on one side, and then you have your 2 bungees looped through on the other side. So now I can go ahead and take my brackets. I'm going to take my left bracket, right? And you know they're left and right. You can't put it on wrong, so because the holes are spaced differently, so don't worry about it too much. I'm going to take the shortest screws, and I'm going to start them. I'm not going to tighten them down yet. I'm just going to get them started. These brackets also they make sure that the bungee loops can't come out. Grab my other bracket. Again, just move those bungee loops out of the way. See how they're getting pinched there? That's great. That's what we want. They're getting kept on by these bolts. Come around and show the back side so they can see that easily. So, and this bracket is meant to be, it's tapered in on purpose. And that's because, it's a little easier. It's better to put a tank on a triangle shape than it is on a square. All right, so that's how you have your 2 bungees attached. You have your bungee stay over here attached. Now we can bolt it onto the frame using the longer bolts. So I'm going to take a long bolt, put this whole thing up, and I'm going to put it in the middle. If you have a 2-tank setup, you're gonna do this differently. But for me, I've only got 1 tank because our flame is so efficient, so I don't need a second tank. But through the holes, these are nice and oversized so that you can easily get it together. You can use a 7/16 wrench on the back as well, or you can just use your adjustable wrench. I'm going to be lazy and use the adjustable wrench. So I'm going to tighten these up first, these bottom ones. Get them all in first, and then you can tighten them. All right, so last, grab your 5/32 Allen wrench, and we're going to tighten up these screws on the front. All right, we're almost done. The next thing we're going to put on the cable for the angle adjustment. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the ball to the bike handle. So make sure that you have it lined up here, and then feed the ball into the handle, and then it kind of goes down that slot. And you can turn that until it gets tight and it's not lined up anymore. And you can put your, right, you see how that goes in? So our cable is now attached. So I've got a couple of wrenches for 1/2 inch. One's actually a 13 millimeter, but that's fine. I've taken my cable and I've put a zip tie here. Don't tighten it down too tight yet, because we want this to be able to move back and forth. So 2 things need to be true. This lever has to be all the way in this direction, all the way over. And also the housing of the cable is going to butt up against this angle. First, I'm going to slide over this spring, just put it back here. I'm going to put the cable through the slot, and I'm going to pull the cable tight so that the housing gets pulled up against this, right? Once that cable is tight and the housing goes up against it, and this lever is still all the way over, I'm going to slide the cable up under the washer. It's a little bent washer. With it slid up under the washer, I'm going to put my wrench on the top, and then I'm going to take my other open end and I'm going to tighten up the nut on the back. I'm going to tighten it down on that cable pretty good. Then I can take my spring, push it over the top, and it's going to hold that housing, that cable housing up against that angle. And now, if I pull my brake, it's going to pull on that lever. I'm going to go ahead and set my height a little bit, angled up a little bit so my handle's useful, right? So I've just set the handle angle and I'm going to pick it up off the table. Oh, actually, before we forget, now that we have the head on, we want to tighten up these bolts. Everything's assembled, so it's nice and where it needs to be. I just want to make sure these are tight. And you may want to go around at this point while it's still on the table and just double check all your bolts are tight. You know, it's a little easier to work with when it's up here. Sits on the ground nicely, right? I can pull the handle, it loosens, and then it slides right down into the teeth bracket. Just perfect. All right, I'm gonna grab a tank. So I've got a standard 20-gallon propane tank. I'm gonna set it on the bracket. On the little carrier. I put this to the back. It's a little easier for me to deal with. This is the other part of your stay, right? Of your keeper. And so you just want to pull that bungee around, and it just pops over the bungee. And then you bring this other part up, if you can, right? And you just put it in whichever triangle you're comfortable with. So you can put it on really, really tight. Maybe harder for someone else to get off, but it'll hold it really nicely. Or you can put it looser if you're, comfortable and maybe not as strong. So now that propane tank is on. I'm gonna grab the hoses, right? So I've got a couple of adjustable wrenches and I've got the hose. First one I'm gonna put on is the one for the tank. So this is POL that fits in your propane tank, and it is an adjustable regulator. This allows us to, set the propane just perfect. Anytime you're, dealing with propane, you want to make sure things are tight. Now, we've already taped the bung that goes into the flame hood for you, and everything that needs to be taped is taped. If it doesn't have tape on it, don't add tape. So these fittings are flare fittings. They don't need tape. All right. So that hose is attached. Now I'm going to attach the hose onto the main housing. Screw that on. There we go. That's tight. This is the hose coming from the blade, the actual flame blade itself. So you're going to want to go around the bottom and attach that on the right side. Doesn't need tape. All right, I'm going to attach it loose at the start. And then this is the hose coming from the tank, the propane tank itself. And again, you're going to want to go around the back. It's a tight fit, but it works. All right, now I'm going to take a wrench, make sure all these joints are tight. All right, do these first, right? And you can hold the hose while you do it. And then you also want to make sure the hose joint is tight, going into the 90. So 90 tight onto the valve itself, and this is also tight. Same thing here. So tighten it up on it, and then you're going to want to tighten it up. And then you just want to make sure you have clearance for your gas lever, right? I got plenty of clearance. I could probably come out a little straighter. You know, you don't want this hose to be kinked anyway, so good to go. So your propane squeeze valve should be in the first hole on the handle. If you're trying to put this together and you don't have enough clearance over here, you know, you can just back it away to the first hole. That's assembly of the flame weeder.
Hey, welcome to Neversink Farm. We're in the wash station and greenhouse sort of combo. And I want to go over lighting the tank mounted blade, because it's a very important. If you haven't lit a flame weeder before, even if you've done that, let's just go through it. It's worth the time. So there's really a few components you need to be thinking about. One is the squeeze valve, the other is the regulator, and then the tank, right? Those are three different dials. The tank being on, the regulator pressure, and the squeeze valve. So we're going to go through each one of those so you understand how to get this thing correct, because you want to keep it at the right heat. You don't want it too high, too low, so that it works perfectly. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go over the squeeze valve. And so there's a black pin in the back, and that will turn the pilot light on and off. And you want to set that while this lever is not depressed. So it wants to be open, and that's how you'll adjust the pilot light. The regulator is adjusted while it's depressed, right? Because it's going to be letting the propane through this pipe, through this valve, and out the flame blade, out the flame weeder. When it's depressed, that's full propane based on your regulator. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the tank. Make sure this is down, right? Dial it down, right? So you want to make sure you decrease it, okay? Right? And you'll see the decrease, okay? It'll be counterclockwise, okay? You want to make sure that's low. There's no reason to keep it up on high. Okay, but right now it's going to be on pilot when we light it. All right, so opening the tank. You should be able to hear it. And light it with a torch. Okay. Just like that. Okay. Now you see that's just pilot. Okay? And that's adjusted with the squeeze valve. Right? So if I turn it down or I turn it up, okay, that's pilot. But pilot should be very low. Okay? Very low. Like nothing. There shouldn't be any heat coming off of it, right? It should just be very low. See that? Okay? You should be able to put your hand up here. No heat really, okay? And it shouldn't be hurting anything on the flame weeder tube or anything like that. You got to grab everything and it's cold. Right, because you have a very low pilot. That's the pilot that's controlled by that black piece through the brass knob, okay? And turning it clockwise will turn it down. Turning it counterclockwise turns it up. But as I said, you want it really low because this is only for transport or lighting, right? Because you want to light it at a very low flame. Right? You want to make it easy to light, okay? And so, see how the tank is wide open? Okay? The tank is open, but you see it's not affecting that because it's on pilot, okay? So I'm going to close it down again. I'm going to show you how to light it again, okay? right? So closing that down is going to stop the flow of propane from the tank, okay? It's going to turn that back on, okay? And then when you go back to light it anytime, because you can set it and forget it, the pilot light. See, this lights it up, and that's just on pilot, okay? Nice and low, okay? Remember, nice and low, okay? Now we're going to set the on position. So that's when you pull the squeeze button. Okay? That's going to be done through this. So you hold it. The flame weeder is killing just germinated wheat. That's it. Can't kill anything underground. So high heat is just a waste of propane, and it's going to destroy your flame weeder. The biggest problems I see with flame weeders, 99% of the time, is running them too hot. I'm talking like, forging a sword hot. And it doesn't need it, because 160 degrees will kill weeds. 160 degrees is just 40 degrees higher than your shower hot water. It's not a lot of temperature. And if you see weeds wilting when you flame them, it's too hot. I know that sounds weird because we all like to watch them die, but that's too hot. About a half an hour to 40 minutes later, the weeds should shrivel up and die. Right? It takes that long for it to happen. Okay? So you just get low, not hot. We're right above the weeds. We got complete bed coverage. We don't need it flaming hot. All right, next time you come over, you just light it right up. Okay, just like that. Boom. Okay, low pilot, and it's so much safer to light it with a pilot. Yeah, no other flame weeders really have a pilot, right? Very important to set that correctly so that you're lighting it with this little tiny flame. Okay, and now this was already set last time. Nice. Make sure your blade is facing forward, not straight up and down or back. It should be facing forward, okay? Okay, just like that. Forward, at an angle towards the ground, forward. Nice and low. And then you're good, okay? So, thanks for watching. Start killing those weeds.